Yo, 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 what's good? What's good? It's Joseph Babe. Yeah, I didn't know, man. Back again. Controversial conversation. And here we are with the episode. We gonna go with episode. Or we gonna go with volume. So I'm right back at it. I don't know. Are these volumes or these episodes? I don't know, man. They can't be volumes because they're not. I may end up getting on a little tangent. My bad. Anyways, we back again. Controversial conversation, man. Last episode we talked. Yeah, their episodes. They episodes. All right. Anyways, last episode we talked about the second quarter of community development and what we needed to do, and a lot of it was about reclaiming our identity and reclaiming our narratives when it comes to the left. Left wing strategy is definitely in the messaging, right? When it comes to the way that we need to get better. So I talked a lot about that. So today we're going to continue on that path and we're going to hit the third quarter of what is our community development. We are going to develop our communities one brick at a time, y'all. So here we go. The third quarter of community development is about accountability, is about advocacy, and is about amplifying new voices. So this is a blueprint for change. All right. So number one, which is technically, I guess, number 11 on the 20 things, but number one is getting back to the rural outreach and education. All right. So this could be a revolution, y'all, where rural communities, see, they're often left out of the conversation, but their votes are just as critical. So we have to show them how politics impact their life directly, right? We have to really, really show them that they are important. One of the biggest, I don't want to call it a flaw, but one of the biggest issues that we have on the left is that we just don't seem to understand population density, and that when you have a whole bunch of people in just a couple areas and not a whole bunch of people out here in all of these other areas, then you don't have a lot of representation out there. And the representation that is out there isn't good. So that's a problem. So we have to get way better at reaching them. Like Atlanta's dope. I go there enough times to know it's one of the best cities in the world. But it's not the only city that matters in Georgia when it comes to organizing, when it comes to mobilizing. There's a lot of rural work that needs to be done. So the execution could look like establishing rural resource hubs that offer services like job training and healthcare, but they also integrate voter education, right? Like we're also making sure that people are understanding their government. So while we're talking to them, with the job training and stuff like that, one, we see, are they civically engaged? Do they vote? Do they show up to council meetings? Are they getting their information from here or for here, for here? And then we're able to kind of get a gauge on what is important to them and what they think. And then that is basically 50% of the 100% that we need to change their perception, right? Because we're already next to them. A lot of the things that folks don't realize when it comes to candidates is that they're not actually as accessible as you would expect, especially during election time. Most people don't actually know who their representatives are and they never actually seen them. So we have to show them that we are reflections of the representatives that we are trying to build up. So we have to use localized examples of political decisions that impact things, right? Like roads, schools, and infrastructures. We have to tie the bad Republican policies like tax cuts and things like that that have taken away money that could have been allocated to infrastructure, that could have been allocated to roads, that could have been allocated to schools and things like that. And we need to develop accessible tools like apps, infographics, and things like that that will simplify voting records and make them relatable. So I don't want to big up 538 or anything like that, but I do like the idea of having a place that you can go to at any given moment and you can just check, did this person vote for this? Did this person vote for this? But we need to make that simple. We need to have apps that literally you just go into it, and during legislative session or whenever a big bill is being voted on or whenever the Supreme Court is making a decision, and then bam, it just updates you and lets you know what's going on so that you can actually tell right now instead of when you start to hear it on the news later, because that's what's happening. The news is starting to shift the perception rather than them getting the information firsthand. So we need to get better at doing that. We need to outreach in rural areas and do better with education. So, a call to action is, what is one issue that's overlooked in rural areas near you? Let us know in the comments so that real change can start with these real conversations. All right, starting to get into some of the fun ones. This one right here is something that I truly appreciate, and I wish that we would do a lot more, right? We have to unapologetically advocate for the things that we believe in. And this means taking the offensive. So it's time to stop defending and start challenging. We have to force the right to explain why their harmful policies are as harmful as they are. And why do they double down on those things, right? So we have to explain harmful policies and then double down on solutions that work. We don't spend enough time explaining why these things work. We take for granted that everybody that listens is just as educated or just as into politics or spends just as much time doing deep dives and studies as the rest of us. No, we have to break it down into more simpler terms, and then we have to unapologetically advocate for it. So we have to create platforms that counter right-wing narratives with facts and bold messaging, right? And I'm not talking about platforms like, just social media type stuff. I'm saying you can use the social media platforms, but you need to get better at getting on the offensive rather than amplifying something. Literally call it out in a way that nullifies it, that cuts it in half, that takes away the sting, that makes it look as goofy as it is, right? So we need to train advocates to reframe debates. So, for example, if you're asking somebody about why they're not interested in universal health care, you're talking to a candidate, you could ask this person, like, so why are you okay with Americans dying from preventable diseases? Put the onus on them, make them feel like this is something that they have to defend, right? So now they look like the bad guy instead of us looking like the bad guy for pushing something that could actually help people, because they're tied to the idea that all of this money is going to be wasted and it's not going to do anything for me, and I'm not going to have my doctor anymore and stuff like that. So we have to be able to show them that they are going to still get a better deal and still have their same doctor and have a better chance at being more healthy, right? So we also need to highlight the Republican failures, and then we have to tie them to everyday struggles. So we have to expose how their actions hurt working families. So if it's something about the tax code that got put in, or if it's something about the education things that are happening as they're continuously defunding the Department of Education, these are things that are going to have lasting effects on the generations coming up, or lasting effects on everyday things. So we have to tie these Republican failures, every one of them, to the everyday struggles that our neighbors are feeling, so that our neighbors will understand that continuing to vote for these people is going to continue to cause the same harm that they are experiencing. So, real quick, just to hit this point home, one of the biggest issues that we just had when it came to this election, and the reason that the left lost, is because a lot of people tied their everyday struggles to inflation and did not understand any of the nuance behind it. So they kept saying that they were better off 4 years ago, and that doesn't add any context. So they didn't understand that he had inherited a better economy from former President Obama. They didn't understand that his tariffs actually hurt, and they didn't do what they were supposed to do, causing to more inflationary period. And they also don't know that his tax code also contributed to inflation. So the things that he actually did and the things that he wants to continue to do are things that are consistently adding to the problems that they still deal with to this day, right? So we have to make them understand that the Republican BS that they are consistently doing is the reason that they are consistently losing when it comes to the things that they want, when it feels like they don't have enough money, when it feels like their kids aren't getting what they need at the school, when it feels like they don't have a daycare that they can go to, when they feel like rural hospitals are being closed, when they don't have access to broadband, when there's things that we are advocating for people every day to get that they need to make their life just a little bit more convenient. The Republicans are the ones that are stopping us from doing that. So my call to action for that is I ask you, what is one issue you think progressives should just stand on business with, right? Like share your thoughts so that we can keep the pressure on their neck, because I really want to know, why is it that we are not advocating every day for the things that we believe in the way that they are? They are really, really good at doing it, but they are really pushing really, really, really bad things. We have a better alternative. So let's show them a better alternative rather than just saying how bad they are. All right. Like I said, man, I'm getting into the ones that feel fun for me, right? So this one right here is we got to call out and we got to clown the politicians, right? So I think we need to have a platform that is a like multi social media platform, from Blue Sky to TikTok if it's still around, to whatever actual platforms there are. Like it just needs to be like consistent across that, and it's called the Democratic backbone. And it's about accountability, and it's how humor can also go hand in hand. So we shame those who fail the public, and we celebrate wins in a way that resonates. So like we launched a Democratic backbone channel to just call out left-leaning politicians who fail voters, right? So we already know about the cinemas and the mansions and stuff like that, but what about the ones who vote for the bills that you didn't even know were going out, right? Like those are the ones that need to be called out consistently so that people know that those aren't the people who have their best interests in mind. So we need to develop also something called the deconstruction zone to go hand in hand with the Democratic backbone. We getting the rhyming now, y'all. Democratic backbone, the deconstruction zone. All right, sorry. Anyways, um, we need a hub for debunking misinformation and celebrating progressive victories with humor and snappy visuals. We got that, right? Like I've seen some of the designs and some of the humor and just some of the like the deadpan deliveries and all of that stuff that we do on the left. We are so good at highlighting the absurdity and being satirical and stuff like that. So we have to use memes and satire and viral content to dismantle credibility while keeping the tone light but impactful, right? Like people don't always want that dry, cut, politic, C-SPAN type thing, right? Because that's not what it is. It's so much more than that. So what we have to do is we need to figure out which politicians would we call out for failing their constituents, right? No, I really want you to like think about it. Like who would you guys literally call out? Let us know below, and we got to hold them accountable, especially because we're going into legislative session. So let's get it popping. All right, this one right here. This is something that I'm probably going to do a whole deep dive on, y'all. We have got to stop rationalizing insanity, right? I know that there has been this conversation on the left with a lot of the big left wing independent media news outlets questioning why Chank and Anna feel like they're doing this shift, and why TYT feels like it's no longer pushing a left wing messaging, or it's no longer a communication hub for the left or whatnot, right? And it's because people think that by going to certain spaces, that by talking to those people you can reach them. We got to stop that. We got to stop that, because what we're doing is we're platforming those bad ideas regardless of if you see it that way or not. This is a problem that we have. We keep giving legitimacy and credibility to things that don't deserve it, and then we put it up against good faith ideas, and it confuses and it distorts what we are doing. That is a problem. I'm being honest. Not every idea deserves airtime. And it's time to stop treating fringe nonsense as a valid debate. So, what the execution looks like is media training for progressives to steer away from engaging with baseless claims. When you hear something that is nonsensical, right, do not argue with it. Do not create a whole debate about something that does not deserve our time. Mock it, make fun of it, treat it like the dumb idea that it really is so that people will understand how dumb of an idea it really is. Stop giving credence to these bad ideas because they are so bad. There is no reason why Charlie Kirk should be able to say that the reason that a plane is going to crash is because of the black pilots being DEI people. Like, shit like that, there's no reason that he shouldn't be called out in his face if you're going to be in front of him. And there's no reason why we should even allow ourselves to be sitting on his stage because there is nothing good coming from that. And we know that. I am not on the same belief that we need to go sit down at every table, sit down in every chair, and sit down in front of every camera. I don't believe that. I really don't, because I do believe that there is a disservice that you can do. And I've seen it when it comes to shows like Piers Morgan and stuff like that, because it doesn't matter how good your intention is, you will never be able to break through the media circus that these shows are. They are about sensationalized nonsense. So there's no reason to go on there and consistently act like what you're going to say is going to be received, because it isn't. So we need to advocate for what we call a red flag system on media platforms to identify and to avoid amplifying harmful ideas. And I know that people are going to look at this as like, well, what about our speech, our free speech? It feels like you don't want us to be able to say the things that we're trying to say. That is not what this is about. This is about framing public campaigns around protecting the truth, not silencing dissent. I am all about dissent. If you have an opinion that is contrary to what everybody else is saying, but there's legitimate reason for you to say it, I am completely behind you getting out there and being able to say it. But if you're just saying it because you want to muddy up the conversation to make it harder for us to get these good faith arguments out, then no, you do not deserve time, you do not deserve energy, and you do not deserve us platforming your bad ideas. So the call to action is, what is one harmful idea that you guys have seen amplified that needs to stop? Drop your examples and let's change this narrative together. All right. So this is the last thing, and it kind of goes hand in hand with a little bit about why I was saying we don't need to just platform everything and we don't need to go to every platform, right? Because there is this thing where some voters are just too far gone. And I know everybody's using examples from the whole Turning Point USA situation with Cenk sitting down and talking about, hey, they hate Mitch McConnell, hey, they hate Dick Cheney, and then him making that seem as if there is some legitimate agreement between right and left wing populism for the same reasons for why we dislike these people. But it's a completely different thing, because we know that if 47, I don't even want to call him his name, but we know if 47 were to be like, hey, this guy over here, Dick Cheney, he actually did some really good things, we know they're gonna be like, yeah, Dick. I'm sorry. But anyways, so yeah, man, we realize that there is a distinct difference and we can't bring them back over. So what we need to do is focus on new voters, not the lost, right? We need to recruit, not reclaim. So, time and resources are going to be better spent mobilizing first time voters, young people, and historically disenfranchised groups. Because once we show them that we actually care about their problems, and then once we link their problems to actionable solutions, and then once we link their problems to the Republican failures that have consistently led to them, we can bring them into the fold, because they're not already either voters or they're not already looking at it from that perspective. So they don't have those really, really bad voting habits that we can break, right? So that is how we need to do that. So the execution looks like shifting resources to engaging new voters where they are, which is TikTok. Shouts out to TikTok, which is music festivals, which is community centers, which is where the people actually are. If you want to reach them, you have to go to where they are. And it's not just Atlanta, it's not just Los Angeles, it's not just New York, it's not just the big cities. It's everywhere that you can think of. We out here, but we feel like we don't have that representation, and that makes it harder for us to use our voices because we don't have platforms that will allow us to amplify them. So we need to highlight real life examples of progressive policies improving lives of everybody so that everybody gets on to this progressive, I don't want to call it bandwagon, but whatever it is, everybody gets on it because they realize that the things that we're pushing, that the candidates that we're pushing, that the ideals that we're pushing, these things are about improving lives. These things are about making your life better, giving you the keys and the tools to self-sufficiency and self-determination so that you can figure out what it is that you want to do for yourself without having to deal with the pitfalls of these other things that are barriers and obstacles that we don't need to deal with, right? So this is how we have to do that. And this is the type of voter that we have to reach, right? So we have to also create compelling narratives about the power of voting to create change. Way too many people believe that their vote does not matter. They believe that by going into that voting booth, they are wasting 15 to 30 to an hour to sometimes 8 hours out of their day because it will not matter. And I've told you, if it didn't matter, they would not work so hard to take it away. I'm talking gerrymandering and redistricting and voter ID laws and SB 202 and whatever else that they try to come out with that makes it that much more difficult for you to exercise your right to participate in the democratic process. So we have to show that one, they are doing that, and two, create another narrative that shows how we are giving that power back to them. There is power in your vote and there is power in the people. So we have to get people to understand the power that they have. And we can't keep focusing on the ones that want to give their power away or the ones that aren't willing to come to us in good faith and listen to what potentially could be better for them. So we do not need to keep trying to get these old people that have left us or the ones that are so far gone that they don't even have an argument. They just don't want us to win, right? We're spending way too much time in the spaces we do not need to be in. So here's a call to action. Are you a new voter or do you know someone who could be? And if you are or if you know, tag them. And let's start this conversation because I need you guys to understand that your vote matters. All right. So, wrapped up third quarter. We're building momentum. We're going to finish strong. So, from rural outreach to unapologetic advocacy, these steps focus on empowerment, accountability, and amplifying new voices. So, the final fourth quarter is on the horizon. That is right. The 4 quarters of community development will finally be complete. We can put it together so that I can show you what it takes to be 100. So you can have $1, so you can keep it $1, so you can take it to the bank. All right, metaphors, whatever. Anyways, that is what is next, man. So we'll bring that all together so we can focus on systemic change and a long-term strategy to turning our vision into victory. So as always, I need you guys to subscribe. I need you to comment. I need you to share so that we can build this platform that more and more people can join this leftist movement so that we can redefine what the left is and that we can build these communities and the images that we deserve to have so that we can have the things that we are fighting for so that we can live a better life. We deserve it and we can get it. So look, y'all do all of those things for me so that we can keep up with the movement because this is how we are going to win. That's all that I got to say. I appreciate you guys just taking the time once again to listen to Controversial Conversation. I am Joseph the Babe. You already know what it is, and I'll catch you next time.